The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Thank you, Tally Olson. I am back. Lovin' baseball when we were 12 and innocent. I'm Ralph Tycho of the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and my practice is to find the most interesting people on the face of the planet to talk to about when they were 12 and what their baseball experience has been or was, and what it led to in their lives. So, without further ado, I will introduce my guest, Mr. Gary Mintz of New Jersey. How are you?
Hey, Ralph, I'm fine. I'm actually in Long Island, New York.
Oh, boy, you travel.
I traveled quickly.
I thought you were from New Jersey.
Nope.
I'm not from Long Island, but I'm from Queens, which is close enough.
Absolutely.
And what part of Long Island are you from, Gary?
I live in Suffolk County, but I taught for 26 years in Queens, in Ridgewood.
Wow. So close to where I grew up in Jackson Heights that you could throw a Molotov cocktail and hit it with no problem. I miss New York on a lot of levels. I was forced to, by the Air Force, when I enlisted. It wasn't being forced, but I left New York, and it turned out to be permanent, living in California. And so let's hear it. How old or what year were you 12?
I was 12 in 1973.
1973. And you have giant New York and through your dad, and San Francisco giant history. 1973 was the year that the Mets played in the World Series and I saw the only game I attended in the only World Series I ever saw was Game 6 of that 1973 season. What was baseball like for you when you were 12? Because it's an interesting year. Enthusiasm meets intellect. And how did you respond at age 12 to the baseball experience?
Baseball was my life, Ralph. Enjoyed it from still is most of it. Yeah, I mean, loved playing it, loved watching it, loved everything about it. I became a fan in 1969. I wanted to be like my father, and he still followed the Giants, even though, they trekked to the left coast, as they say here. And
yes.
I wanted to be like him. So every morning I'd wake up, hey, how'd the Giants do when I was 8 and 9 years old? Because back then the game started 10:30, 11 o'clock, and, I didn't know the score, and my dad would always tell me the score. And my first game I ever went to was a Giant Met game in '69. And he really, first game I went to, I don't know if you remember this game, Ralph. Giants played the Mets, 0-0, bottom of the 14th inning. Juan Marichal still pitching for the Giants. I had to go to the bathroom, and my dad refused to take me. He said, your brother will take you. So my brother takes me by the hand. I'm 8 years old. We go into the stalls at Shea Stadium. and you hear this roar, and my brother grabs my hand, and we see Tommy Agee rounding third. He hit a home run off Marichal. Mets won 1-0, 14 innings. First game of my career as a baseball fan.
Wow. How nice. And you were hooked for life.
I was hooked. And then, you said what happened when you were 12. When I was 11, another Met game. I happened to go to a couple of really good ones. This one was Willie Mays' first game as a Met. Mother's Day, 1972. Raining the whole day. Thought the game would be canceled. We weren't playing, but my father, drove the car. And we went. And that was the only day as a Giant fan it was okay for them to lose. Because Mays hit the home run. And it was poetic justice that the Mets won that day. And, Mays played a big part of it, so. Which brings me full circle.
Let me give you a little footnote to Willie Mays coming back to the Mets. And this is what I got from Lenny Randall, who is kind enough to do many podcasts on this network. And Lenny Randall was a teammate of Willie when he came back. And he said that even at age 42, Willie Mays was still the best athlete on the Mets at that time, at age 42. And everybody talks like, well, he stayed too long and this, that, and the other thing. But 73 was the year that he led them, not led them, but was part of the pennant-winning team. And that was my favorite Met team of all time. Underachievers at the beginning because of injuries. Harrelson was hurt. But so you got to see Willie and as a Met. I never saw him as a Met. I had the privilege of seeing him in his second coming when he went to the Giants. When he went out to San Francisco, it was basically two different Willies from New York and San Francisco. But I got to see him a lot of years. Never saw him as a Met. And other than that World Series. But
well, you were fortunate, Ralph. You were fortunate because you're a little older than me. I saw him,
oh yeah, that's
in the twilight years. When
I'm very fortunate to be older.
When it comes to watching Willie Mays, yes, because I saw him near the end, and he was still a good player, but you saw him when he was the greatest player.
Oh yes, I got, because of my grandfather's influence, much like yours, the way you describe it, and the fanaticism and this and that. He took me to the Polo Grounds when I was 4.5 years old.
Wow.
And I remember the first, I think it was opening day, but I don't have a clear recollection. I know they were playing the Phillies, and Richie Ashburn was the first future Met at the time, the first batter I ever saw bat. But he took me to the Polo Grounds before Willie was called up in 1951. And he took me back after he was called up, and we went over the lineups of who got moved. Bobby Thompson got moved to third base, this, that, and the other thing. And I have clear memories of that. And the delight that Willie brought to my grandfather's eyes when he would make, and we went to a lot of games because it was he lived in the Bronx, and I visited them, my grandparents, on weekends, just so my parents could get rid of me, and it was very successful. Thank you very much.
Well, Ralph, you know for a fact, and it's hard to dispute, like in our group that I run, but also worldwide, countrywide, whatever, any fan of the San Francisco Giants who live in New York, the main reason they still follow the Giants is because of Willie Mays. That's why my father still rooted for them. It was because of Willie Mays.
Yes. And the interesting part with Willie is Barry Bonds, to me. How he was a godfather, and not that that's the only interesting part, but the interesting part in Willie's later years was his relationship with first Bobby Bonds and then his Bobby's son Barry. Very intriguing to me. What did you find that you miss about those days, baseball itself? And what is it that you're glad baseball evolved? There are things that are good. What do you miss, and what are you glad for the changes?
What do I miss? I loved when guys were on the teams and you knew who was where instead of all of this moving around. I loved when there was no interleague play, when I would, as a youngster, be in upstate New York looking forward to the All-Star game because it's the first time you could see some of these guys. These things, and now, things this Ghost Runner thing today, what are they doing, Ralph?
Yeah, that's crazy. That makes me sick.
It's just,
what
else?
They're doing it on a permanent basis.
Yes.
And not in the playoffs in the World Series. So
right.
What does that tell the fan? That the actual season, it doesn't really matter.
And then they're telling you that the fans like the idea. Who are they asking?
Right.
I don't understand. And you said what else? Another thing, when you're 3,000 miles away, this is both good and bad. When you're young and 3,000 miles away, and you get the newspaper and you see the box score, the scores, and it says N next to the Giants because they played too late, and you live for getting the sporting news to see old box scores, and once in a while the Giants are on the game of the week. You had to be a totally devoted fan to follow them, which is why I am the way I am. For example, the New York Football Giants, I also root for. They're in the paper every day here. It's not hard to follow them, but following a team 3,000 miles away, trying to listen to a game at 11 o'clock on radio with static from St. Louis or Chicago and thinking, well, did they hit a home run or was that just static? That was hard to do, but it made me the fan I am. Today, you said what's better. It's amazing that I could watch every game on television. I could go online and see all the transactions that happen. Oh, this is why the guy's in the lineup because, last night they waived the guy, whereas in the past you would see a name in the lineup. You're like, well, how'd they get him? When did this happen?
Well,
those are some of my...
interesting. We went through the same thing, but reversed. I was out here trying to follow, out here being the Bay Area,
the Mets,
trying to follow the Mets. And before this recent wave of started with cable, but the internet, you can get every game on the internet. Before
every pitch, Ralph. It's unbelievable.
Right. From both the home team and
that's right.
the away game. You can get any of those announcers. And that's my next question to you. What was your favorite announcer of all time?
My favorite announcer of all time.
Who was your favorite announcer?
Because I grew up in New York, I'm going to surprise you. It's not a Giant. It's Lindsey Nelson. I thought he was great. Lindsey Nelson, you know, because I rooted for the Giants and I couldn't see any of the games really, I watched the Mets, and I loved Lindsey Nelson and Bob Murphy especially. Ralph Kiner was good, but I like guys who are groomed to be broadcasters, not jocks who learn and then go in the booth. And today, these jocks don't even learn. They just go in the booth. I don't understand. But I thought Lindsey Nelson was fabulous.
Once they did, and my favorite announcer is Phil Rizzuto of all time.
Right.
And I wasn't a Yankee fan. Before Phil Rizzuto became kind of a caricature of himself, he was a terrific announcer with Red Barber and Mel Allen in the same booth, those three.
That's great.
And there are games you can get on YouTube, radio games, the 61 Yankees playing Cleveland, that sort of thing. And you can hear those guys, and it's terrific. I wanted to mention to you, and I don't know if you remember, when Lindsey Nelson left the Mets, he became a Giant announcer.
That's correct. I actually went to a game. The Giants playing the Phillies, and I believe it was either 78 or 79, and he was the Giant broadcaster, and he was, we stayed at that same hotel when they went to Philadelphia, and he was down there eating breakfast, and of course he was easily visible, Ralph, because of the wild jacket he wore.
The jacket,
so,
right.
Exactly. I thought he was fabulous, and as a Giant fan, John Miller is just unbeatable. He's wonderful. But as an all-time greatest announcer who I wish I got to hear all the time, it was Vin Scully. I mean, I don't like the Dodgers, but I would listen to a Dodger-Giant game with him announcing because he was that good. He didn't need anybody else. Now they have three-man booths. He was fine by himself. He's just fabulous, and the baseball world lost a lot when he passed away.
Do you know that he was a Giant fan till the day he died? That's
correct. He went to Fordham University.
Fordham, and rooted for Mel Ott.
That's right.
And played against Bush, the first Bush, who was playing for Yale. And there's a box score out there, him playing center field for Fordham. And brought to you by because Red Barber basically chose him, and so we're mentioning
very good choice.
Yes, a very good choice, a good hire, as they say. Gary, what do you do avocationally?
I'm sorry?
What do you do avocationally?
I was a teacher in Queens.
Okay, I'm sorry. I lost track.
I taught for 26 years. Loved it.
What did you teach?
I taught mostly out of classroom. Like I would go into classes, teach history, math, whatever the year it was usually different. The last few years I taught math and social studies in 5th grade. And loved the students. Administration, most of them were wonderful. It was just the commute started getting to me, and I had a grandchild who was recently born, so I wanted to spend time with them. So it was just a good time to retire.
Are you bringing the grandchild to baseball?
He just turned 3, and I have another one who's 6 months old. Actually, today.
A little early. perhaps.
The 3-year-old this year, we got an independent team here, the Long Island Ducks. I think that'll be a good way to start his baseball navigation.
Did Wally Backman manage them for a while? Or?
He still is the manager.
Oh, boy. I have nothing in my head but trivia. And that's a bad word, trivia, because it's not trivial.
That's correct. Trivia is good stuff. Bud Harrelson was the part owner, and he was a coach for a long time, but I think he's suffering from Alzheimer's now, so he's not really involved.
Yeah. That's kind of sad.
Yeah.
We are losing folks at a
Tim McCarver yesterday, terrible.
A Met announcer for a long time, and brought me the Mets when WOR came into being, and I got some cable Mets out here, and he was the announcer. And I can't think of the saddest moment that Tim McCarver was involved in was with Deion Sanders. And
that's right. He threw water on him or something.
He did, and
terrible. Jerk.
That was terrible. And I was hoping that McCarver would outlive him, but not to be. But I can't control everything, It's not easy. Gary.
So anyway, besides teaching, when I retired, I started to really have more time for my family and this giant organization I run, and that keeps me happy because this group that we run, all the members are really into what we do, and it's a great feeling.
Beautiful. Gary, please come back often, and I loved having you as a guest.
Ralph, it's my pleasure. If anybody out there is interested in New York Giant baseball, they could reach out to you, and you could send them our way.
I definitely will. And you are introducing me to Zoom so I can participate. Tell the audience how you've made progression in the group. It's gone from...
absolutely. So we started our group, Ralph, in 2012, and we'd have 3 or 4 meetings a year in Manhattan, and it was tough. You'd have to revolve around people's schedule. Oh, is there somebody from the Giants coming in? Oh, is an author going to be in? And it was very difficult. And then COVID came, and that basically put an end to any meetings we had. But what happened was COVID came in March of 2020, and I was still teaching. I was going to retire in June, which I did. But we had to teach virtually. So I had to learn how to talk to my students through the computer. And we were on a thing called Google Meets, and it was working. I'd speak to the kids. It's terrible talking to the kids through a computer. You want to go around and encourage them, put your hand, pat them on the back, great job, whatever.
Eye contact for one. That's
absolutely.
What I could.
However,
never understand a hug here and there.
Yeah. Well, guys, male teachers can't hug anybody these days. You get in trouble because that's just how it is. You understand, I'm sure.
I understand, but I was speaking figuratively more than anything else.
Anyway, I retired in June, and then a couple months went by, and somebody said, why don't you try to do one of these Zooms with the group? And I was like, I could try that. And so we did a few on Google Meets, and they were very successful. And then somebody said, you really should do Zoom. It's much, much better. And that's what we've done. And last 2 weeks ago, believe it or not, since August of 2020 till February of 2023, we've had 100 virtual meetings. So COVID actually, improved our group. One of the main things about COVID that was good was our group has grown. We have meetings, but basically 3 or 4 times a month, and with a guest speaker having to do with mostly the New York Giants, but sometimes the San Francisco Giants as well, as many of us are still fans. And the members who sign in, we have people from Alaska, San Francisco, Delaware, Arizona, Rochester, New York, Minnesota. I mean, it's opened up a whole new thing, and we are a viable product that people enjoy, and we are recognized. The San Francisco Giants recognize us. When they won the World Series, they had a trophy tour. We were invited to have a special brunch each time, our group was, and Willie Mays showed up each time, and I mean, just unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
And Ralph, you should have been in our group. You would have been here with us.
And I am getting to meet you and going to be my good friend and podcast partner on this network. Hal Bach tells me that he spent 2 or 3 interviews when he had his book with you. When he
Hal
put
Bach
out his book.
Hal Bach spoke at one of our live meetings about the book Banned.
Right.
I don't know. He was excellent. That's when we used to have live meetings. We met at a place called the Bergino Baseball Clubhouse. It was in Greenwich Village. And then they unfortunately closed down. And then we had about 4 or 5 meetings at Finity's. Then COVID came, and then Finity's never reopened. So the future of us with live meetings, maybe, but, our future really is virtual, I think, because we just reach so many more people and get so many more guests.
What's heartwarming is that all these years there has been the Brooklyn Dodgers this, the Brooklyn Dodgers that, Bums was written, Boys of Summer, classic books, great books. There hasn't been much of a fan get-together. You don't hear about the New York Giants fans much. And this will change that because we lost, New York Giant fans lost not only Willie, but National League Baseball. The competition between the Giants and the Dodgers was incredible. And to strip the city of that at a time when it was, what was going on in New York and how losing those 2 teams affected the spirit of New York at that time.
I don't envy the members in our group. I have a different perspective than them because I didn't live it. They were already in San Francisco, when I became a fan. They, unfortunately, are still Giant fans, but that would have killed me. Most of the Dodger fans, they I don't know, 10% maybe still root for the Dodgers. They're vilified. And if the Dodgers, when the Dodgers won the World Series a couple of years back in the shortened season, there was no thought about bringing a trophy to Brooklyn because nobody would show up.
Yes.
The Giants still remember their past. Their ballpark has all stuff about, playing in New York. Unfortunately, we lost a member who was a vital part of the Giant front office. Peter McGowan was one of our members, and he really tried his best to make sure that the legacy of the team from New York remained. But he was fabulous. And this group we have now, we're doing a tour of the Polo Ground area on March 29th in New York. We're going to see where Willie Mays lived and all the street signage and where home plate was.
That great picture of Willie playing stickball.
I was there yesterday, Ralph. I had to go see my mother, who unfortunately is in a nursing home, and she's about a mile from there. So I drove to 80 St. Nicholas Place, and that's where he played stickball. And then
which is basically right around the corner from the staircase.
That's exactly where, right across the street. So
that I visited and got to meet one of your members. Ronald Harvin met me.
Yes. Ronald dresses up in New York Giant regalia.
He
lives there.
He wears 51, the number, and he literally lives there. And he took me on a tour. I saw home plate.
Yep. He's a good man.
He's a very good man.
Ralph, the funny thing was, I took a picture of Maze's, where he lived, and then this morning on YouTube, I went to see him play stickball as a video, and it's right in front of the place. Looks exactly the same as what I'm telling you. It's you can see the bricks. It's exactly the same. Unfortunately, I guess.
And they fix the stairway up. It's really nice, and you know what? You walk down that stairway, you get chills.
Yeah, they did a great job. There are two main stairways, but that brush stairway that has the engraving on it, all of the teams that played at the Polo Grounds gave in money, and they had a nice rededication that our group was invited to. Our group is invited to a lot of things. I spoke at a Monty Irvin statue dedication in Orange, New Jersey. We were invited to Carl Hubble Day in Hawthorne, New Jersey. We've been asked to go to a lot of events. So, despite the aging of our members, we are a viable group, and we're not going anywhere, I hope. So,
I just want you to know, as someone who's a little older than you, I want to thank you for carrying this on, because as you say, we're dying off. Anybody who remembers the New York Giants, Mike McCormick died. I mean, there's all kinds of.
There's only Ralph. There's 10 living New York Giants members.
Right.
Only 10.
And Willie is the only 1951 pennant-winning New York Giant survivor.
Correct. I think there's maybe four of the 10, or either 4 or 5 are still alive from the 54 team that won it.
Yeah. So. Let me give you a bit of trivia, Giant trivia. In 1954, when they won, there were 2 bonus babies forced to be on the squad, Joey Amalfitano and Paul Guile. They had nicknames that their teammates gave them. Do you know what they are?
No, I do not.
Amalfitano was called Jingles, and Guile was called Jangles because of the bucks that they got.
By the way, Joey Amalfitano, when the Giants won in 2010, they brought the trophy into Manhattan in 2011. He accompanied the team. It was nice.
Oh, nice indeed. And he made the final out of Koufax. We were talking about Vince Scully. Koufax pitched a perfect game. Vince Scully announced that last inning. It's on YouTube. And Amalfitano made the final out. So I think
that's not trivial. That's trivia.
Right. Exactly. That is, but not trivial at all when you think about it. And isn't it nice that you and I, for instance, could talk ball and the subject skips from this to that to the other, and it ends up being a terrific interview. Thank you, Gary.
Ralph, my pleasure. And again, if you ever need any other guests ever, talk more, I'm always available, okay?
Beautiful. I consider that an honor. And thank you for listening, everybody. If you had as much fun listening as I did talking, then my day was complete. And this is kind of early, Gary. You're getting me up.
I hope it was worth it, Ralph.
It was definitely worth it. I really enjoyed it. Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. I'm Ralph Tycho. The guest was Gary Mintz. I'm the weak link of it all, but I'm a damn good producer. How about that? Getting Gary. Thank you for listening. Adios and happy trails.
The proceeding has been a Comfortably Zoned Network production. You are advised to keep your dreams wet, your humor dry, your children and grandchildren out of military recruiting offices, and off the laps of clerics who wear dresses. Thank you for listening, everyone. Happy trails.